What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. If you want to support me, you can now support me directly on Patreon. Not only is it the best way to support the channel, additionally you'll get more say in what deck techs I cover. Special shout out to all of you high contributing Patreons. Newsome, you rock. Additionally, you can use that TCGplayer link in the description down below, or as always just liking, commenting, subscribing will do the trick. Now let's get into today's deck tech with Lovisa. And this girl is going to be our weekly Patreon voted deck tech. And honestly, I wasn't that excited to build this girl when I first saw her, but when I started diving into what she can do and how much warriors, barbarians, berserkers there are in red, it turns out to be extremely explosive. I mean, Combat Celebrant for 3 mana that immediately gives you an extra combat step can just end games. And when we start pairing that with cards like Calamity Bearer that start smacking people in the face for 10 damage, and then we double him up with a Flame Rush Rider, it gets pretty insane and honestly feels like a super awesome glass cannon that kills our opponents extremely fast. We do run a lot of fast mana to keep up with, the high mana curve because we are in mono red, but Neheb is going to be perfect for this. Both Nehebs, in fact. Discard some cards, go ahead and add a lot of mana to your hand, or just deal a lot of damage, add a lot of mana, dump out your hand and get that second combat step and attack for the win. So if you want to see this incredibly explosive mono red deck, let's get into it. Let's kick it off by talking about all the broken creatures that are going to get impacted by her ability. Calamity Bearer, we all know this one, he's just going to deal double damage, and that's going to be a lot, especially when we can copy him. When we start copying him with stuff like Mirror Style Master, Flame Rush Rider, and Jaxus the Troublemaker, double damage can easily turn into quadruple damage. Combat Celebrant, Karlach, and Marag are going to be able to net us instant extra combat steps. These are going to be the main cards we're going to use to close out the game. They can be incredibly impactful, especially when we have something like a Neheb on the battlefield feeding us a ton of mana. Devilish Valet is another card that can get extremely massive in this deck, especially when we have a Krinko on the field. Now, you don't really want to attack with Krinko, but the fact that Krinko enters with haste and we can immediately start tapping him to generate a huge army is massive. Warchief Giant and Tiamat's Fanatics are going to be solid since they have that Myriad ability. Not only are the Myriad tokens also going to enjoy that +2 from our commander, Warchief Giants is a giant, so we're going to get extra damage off that Calamity Bearer again. Professional Facebreaker is going to be even more solid now that she's a 4/5. She's going to be a lot harder to block. Additionally, remember, her ability is worded to where you can only net 1 treasure per opponent, but if we attack all of our opponents, we can net 3 treasures a turn with this girl. We're also running both of the Nehebs. One's going to net us a ton of mana, and then the other one's going to be able to loot us pretty well while also giving us additional mana. If we're going to wheel right after this, or in a world where Dragon Mage is on the battlefield, it's always good just to discard your hands, get that extra mana, and then you draw off the Dragon Mage and everything's going to be fine, and you're going to have a ton of cards in your hand and a ton of mana to spend. Lelia is just a solid creature that's going to dig us 1 card deep every turn. Sometimes we will miss out on that card, but it's going to be better to have her in the deck than not. Gimli's going to be busted because now he's a 3/3 that generates treasure tokens, notably because he has double strike. That's going to be 2 treasure tokens a turn. There's just a lot of ways in this deck to generate incidental mana, and it adds up over the course of a couple combats. Kazul, this guy's in the deck because simply we are going to be attacking face non-stop, so to have something to protect us is going to be extremely impactful to protect us from that crackback. Arnie's just going to be able to make himself massive, and then we have Karn. It's honestly extremely easy to make a deal with someone to where they always gain control of Karn and then they give them immediately right back to you. Notably, Karn is also unique because you don't have to give it to the same person you attacked. You can attack that guy over there and then give Karn to the other guy, and then he can proceed to attack the same guy, and our commander is going to be buffing him the whole time since it is a symmetrical effect. Archetype of Aggression is going to be solid because a lot of these creatures are going to be massive, but they're not going to have trample. Godo Bandit Warlord is also going to see play in this deck. I'll go over why a little bit later. Ogre Battle Driver can be a solid stand-in for our commander since he does give the kind of same effects. You're going to get +2 the turn they come in, and they will have haste. But if your commander is additionally on the battlefield, giving everything +4 for a turn is going to be extremely impactful. Let's talk about why we are running Godo Bandit Warlord. We are pairing him up with himself and Goblin Engineer to fetch up almost every artifact or equipment in our library. If we pair Sword of Hearth and Home with an effect like Godo or Goblin Engineer, we can just repeatedly start blinking them, getting all of our impactful equipment / artifacts onto the battlefield or in the graveyard, right? You're obviously going to want to grab Sword of Hearth and Home first, and then you can grab stuff like, I don't know, the Reaver Cleaver, Sword of Light and Shadows if you need to reanimate something, Mask of Memories is going to draw us cards, which is going to be solid, Blade of Selves is going to be absolutely insane in this deck. Throw this on a Calamity Bearer, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going to be dealing 8 times damage with those giants. And then we're going to have Sword of Forge and Frontier, super solid impulse draw, and then we get the ability to play additional lands. Notably, with additional combat steps, the Sword of X and Ys will stack, getting you exponential value. Let's go over a few bombs we run in the deck real quick. We have Kiki Jiki. This guy has a ton of utility in the deck, whether we're creating token copies of our most impactful creatures, getting reusable value out of our ETBs, such as Nullspine Dragon. It's amazing to activate Kiki Jiki after combat and then just refill your whole entire hand. And he also goes infinite with Combat Celebrant, so he has that going for him as well. Blood Crusher Crone doesn't synergize with the commander, but I just wanted more ways to give trample to all of our creatures. Flame Shadow Conjuring can be extremely busted, just again doubling up on ETBs while getting more creatures to smash face with. Graz the Unstoppable. Now, I might have fallen too deep down the rabbit hole with this one, but hear me out. Our commander's already giving all of our creatures +2/+2, so now if they have base power 5/3, they're going to be 7/5s. Now, we want to be attacking every turn all the time anyway, so the fact that they have to attack every turn is not even a downside in this deck. Moving on to card advantage, we have Reckless Impulse and Rin's Resolve. I love cards like this. 2 mana to draw 2 cards essentially in red. I know people don't like the impulse draw because what if you exile your Graz the Unstoppable? It's just not how this game was meant to play, you know? There's 100 cards in the deck and several ways to win, so Graz the Unstoppable isn't the win con this time. Go to your other outs. I'm extremely surprised with Horn of the Mark and how efficient it is at digging you deep, getting you to your key pieces. The Immortal Sun. Again, this card does a little bit of everything we want. Our creatures are going to get a small anthem, our spells are going to cost less, and then we're going to get solid card advantage every turn. Jeska's Will. It's easy to say this is a staple, but honestly, with how high our mana curve is, we need a lot of ritual effects to make sure we're able to play these massive creatures early. So it's perfect in the deck as a ritual, and late game if we have our commander on the battlefield, it's perfect to draw some cards as well. Wheel of Misfortune and Reforge the Soul are just some solid cards to refill our hand. Dragon Mage. I like this guy as well. Not only does he get into the red zone, start smashing face, he's going to make sure we're constantly refilling our hand. So if we have something like Neheb on the battlefield, you can ensure that we're not only going to be able to consistently refill our hand, but we're going to be consistently dumping that hand onto the battlefield as well. Nullspine Dragon. There is several ways in the deck to double up on this ETB, so he doesn't just become a dead card once he's entered the battlefield. We also run War Room because, again, it's a monocolored deck. Why not? Moving on to ramp, we have Treasure Map. I've been loving this card, honestly. Smooths out your draws early game and then gives you a solid ritual that will again draw you cards if you're out of cards in your hand. Throne of Eldraine is just busted in monocolored decks. I would pick it up now. I don't see this card ever dropping in price. As long as people continue to make monocolored decks, this is going to continue to be one of the best cards in them. Sceptre of Eternal Glory, more solid monocolored deck tech. Again, maybe don't shove these in every single one of your monocolored decks, but think about it in this deck. If we play at turn 4, turn 5, we're going to have access to 7 mana, and that's going to ensure that we're able to play 100% of the cards in our deck. Excluding Graz the Unstoppable, because 8 mana is 8 mana, but hey, he's so cool, right? Mana Geyser can be a casual 15 mana 9 times out of 10. Seething Song can make sure we cast our commander as soon as turn 3. Ruby Medallion is going to be amazing, again reducing all of the cards in our deck essentially, minus those artifacts. Fire Diamond, Wayfarer's Bauble, Soul Ring, and Arcane Signet, just some solid staples that come down early and ramp us into our commander. Moving on to removal, we have Uncivil Unrest. Now honestly, this one's just a joke. The joke here is this is player removal. Giving all of our creatures double damage because now they have Riot and Haste is going to be busted, and again, our opponents are not going to live very long if this card sticks. Skred's going to be solid. We are running Snow Permanent, so it's just 1 mana. Basically kill any creature you want. Chaos Warp is going to be solid. Get rid of any permanent that is causing us issues. Tibok's Trickery, a counter magic spell in red. Yes, we will take that. Shatterskull Smashing. Is it a land card? Is it a removal card? It's both, and we love it. Warstorm Surge. We have a lot of massive creatures entering the battlefield, so when they enter, it's going to be solid that they just deal damage to stuff. Vandal Blast is a solid artifact board wipe that's one-sided, which we love since a lot of our mana rocks are, artifacts. Chain Reaction and Blasphemous Act are going to be solid board wipes. We also do run Ugin, and the reason for that is we have to stop those enchantment strategies. The best way to stop an enchantment strategy in red is to kill the player, so just giving us another option besides, player removal is going to be solid. That's going to do it for the deck tech, guys. Again, I was definitely pleasantly surprised by the power of this commander and how interesting it is once you start playing it and building it and really looking into what she does. Additionally, guys, if you want more say in what deck techs or you want to be a part of the vote for the Patreon weekly budget build, becoming a Patreon is the perfect way to do that. While we're on that topic, special thanks to all my Patreons. I definitely couldn't do it without you. I appreciate every one of you. I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I will see you in the next one.